Hello there, one and all, and thank you very much for tuning in to episode 589, getting closer to 600, aren't we, of Love at First Scent with me, Persolaise, live on YouTube as always, and whether you're watching the live or you're watching the recording, you are very, very welcome. We have comments already. Alex is first, saying hello again from Graz, and greetings to everyone. Scent of the day is number 1 by Nikolai. Is that what you were wearing last time? I can't remember. I'm pretty sure it was a Nikolai. I can't remember which one it was though. Oriana says hello. Hi, Oriana. Maria says hello, everyone, from rainy Sofia. Oh gosh, that brings back some memories. I've only ever been there once, but it was a very memorable visit. Yvette says good morning from Virginia. Féminité du Bois today here. Wow. More Violette. Hello, I'm wearing Salamanca by Olympic Orchids. Not familiar with that one. Menelaus says, finally, first time I managed to catch you live. I am very, very happy to be caught. Keep the comments coming, keep the questions coming, whether you are watching the live or you're watching the recording. If you haven't already subscribed to this channel, please do consider doing so. Make sure you click on the little bell so that you get notifications about new videos. And if you'd like to find out how you can support my work, you should be able to see a link to my Ko-fi page in the video description below, as well as to my Substack, which has had a little bit of a subtle revamp. I haven't made too much of it, but the eagle-eyed amongst you may spot that something about it has changed. Okay. Tripty says, hi Persolaise, I'm delighted I can watch this live on a Monday at home, sick, so this is a welcome treat. Sending you good wishes, get better soon. There are so many bugs and things going around. I think it's that kind of time of the year, isn't it, when what is it? Przesilenie jesienne for the Polish speakers amongst us, when summer very, very definitely turns into autumn and we kind of need to batten down the hatches and start wearing long sleeves again, etc., etc. Christian says, today I'm wearing Musc Ravageur layered with Lune Feline. Wow. Layering anything with Musc Ravageur is quite brave. And the plan for today. Okay, plan for today is just to do one feature-length video. They're usually the ones where the banter takes on a life of its own, so hopefully today's one won't be an exception. And I would like to be able to get through these 5 with you today if I can. But a bit of a heads up for those of you watching live tomorrow, so that's Tuesday the 7th of October at 6 p.m. UK time. I am really delighted to be able to welcome Hiram Green of the Hiram Green brand here in the virtual studio for an interview. So I know there are a lot of you out there who love his work, who really, really respect and admire his brand. So if you've got any questions for him, try to make it tomorrow at 6 p.m. UK time. I think we ought to get going. Where do we start? We have pre-sprayed blotters for all of these, but I've just realized I haven't done pre-labeled blotters for today's spraying. Never mind, that won't take long. Let's start with this one from Roos Roos. This is the brand that quite a few years ago now was founded by Chantal Roos and her daughter, and it's really awful, but I cannot remember her daughter's name at the moment, so perhaps somebody will help me out with that. If you're not aware of who Chantal Roos is, she is a kind of legendary creative director. It is thanks to her that we have scents like YSL Kouros and Jazz and Paris and perfumes for several other brands as well. I think in some ways she's considered a sort of French Anne Gottlieb, or maybe Anne Gottlieb was considered to be the French Roos, Chantal Roos. I'm not sure, but a real force to be reckoned with, and she knows her perfume. And a few years ago, she set up this brand with her daughter. But when it was launched, it was called Dear Rose, which I think at the time a lot of us thought was a bit of an odd name, because we thought, well, you're not just making rose perfumes and you're really pigeonholing yourself and cornering yourself unnecessarily. So I think they very, very sensibly did a rebrand and came back as Roos Roos. It's a brand that I think it's fair to say doesn't seem to have massively resonated with UK audiences. But personally, I think that's a bit unfair. I think they've got a lot of interesting work. Some of my favourites of theirs haven't stuck around in the UK market, and they're available elsewhere, and they're still part of the brand's catalogue, but they're not here. Pale Blue Eyes, I seem to remember, by Dominique Ropion, was one that I really, really enjoyed. It was a kind of modern retelling of Dior's Dune, and they do have some interesting works out there. Now, this one I was intrigued by as soon as I found out about it. It's called Les Larmes de, and I'm just going to say Tiresias. I'm not sure how we're meant to say Tiresias in French. And when I first heard about this perfume, I did a little kind of mental thumbs up, because I thought, finally somebody has decided to make a perfume based on the figure of Tiresias. He's a figure that's been sort of crying out to have a perfume made about him. I'm not an expert on Greek mythology, and actually I think the first time I heard about Tiresias was back in A-level days when we were studying T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland. But the whole, in many ways, the point of the Tiresias figure is that he's somebody who started life as a man and then became a woman for 7 years and then went back to being a man again. I think the being turned into a woman was a punishment, which is a little bit unfortunate that being turned into a woman is a punishment. But maybe back in those days, being a woman was even, was very definitely a hardship. And I think what happened was that he saw two snakes copulating, I think is probably a polite way of putting it, and he threw a stick at them and hit them and angered one of the goddesses, who decided to turn him into a woman. And as a woman, he got married and had children, and then I forget how the story goes, but something happened and he became a man again. And as you can imagine, each time I thought of the Tiresias figure, I thought, surely now is the perfect time for somebody to do a perfume which plays with feminine and masculine olfactory codes and tries to give us a perfume interpretation of the Tiresias story. Woozy says, Mentha Religiosa, I really, really love that one. That's probably my favourite from the brand. And Woods in Love are my favourite from the range. Gender Goblin says, Tiresias was obviously a gender goblin. Yes, I suppose he was. Okay, let's have a spray. This is by Alexandra Carlin. Very talented perfumer with a very distinctive style. I think she doesn't shy away from quite sour notes, from a scent profile that can be quite angular, quite sharp. Maybe I'd even go so far as to say a little bit off-putting, standoffish, in a kind of interesting, jagged sort of way. And I think you can detect quite a bit of that style here. So what do you get when you smell it? Well, surprise, surprise, you immediately get a contrast, a clear contrast between a white floral, I would say, and I've since discovered that it's meant to be orange blossom, and I think it is. I was initially thinking, is it quite jasmine-y as well? So you get that on the one side, and quite robust woods on the other. Maybe cedar, maybe something that is sort of veering into patchouli territory. You also get, and I think this can be as much of a blessing as a curse, because it's kind of interesting, but also maybe a little bit difficult to pull off. You get a very, very definite synthetic edge, something that's got bite, something that's got teeth, something that doesn't mind being, heading in the direction of being screechy. Maybe that's meant to be the snakes, maybe that's meant to be a kind of dangerous note. I can tell you, having worn this, that it does calm down, but it's quite piercing. It's quite sharp to start with, and it's got the thing that I was talking about a few seconds ago, that kind of jagged, angular feel of many Alexandre Carlin scents. And also, I said that the contrast between the floral and the wood is clear, but I'm not sure that I would say it's particularly strong, because to my nose, at least in the opening, and we'll see what we think of the pre-sprayed blotter, to my nose, things do markedly, definitely lean in the direction of the florals rather than the woods. I think personally, I might have been more struck by this. I might have been more wowed by the opening of this if the contrast between the two sides of the coin was bolder, was more marked. This is a floral with the woods added in as a contrast, rather than the kind of scent where you're not quite sure what's what. As a comparison, if you ever get a chance to smell Cèdre Sans Bac by Christine Nagel for Hermès, for the Hermessence range, that does the wood white floral contrast thing superbly, because in that perfume you can't decide almost until the very end which of the two elements is winning. That could have been another Tiresias perfume, actually. So it's interesting, but I'm not sure that the opening hits that male-female dichotomy quite as strongly as it ought to. Anyway, let's see what the press material says. Fear not, it is very brief. Gender Goblin says, this sounds right up my street. Well, if you do get to try it, please let me know what you think of it. Where are we? Here we go. Les Larmes de Tiresias, the tears of Tiresias, that is, isn't it? In the heart of myth and mystery, a fragrance is born. Les Larmes de Tiresias, a scent inspired by the legendary prophet who transcended the boundaries of gender and time. This evocative fragrance captures the essence of metamorphosis, an olfactory journey through rebirth, duality, and the wisdom of change. The myth of Tiresias serves as the foundation for this creation, celebrating transformation and the fluidity of identity. As legend tells, Tiresias encountered two entwined snakes, even more polite way of putting it, and upon striking them with a stick was transformed into a woman. For 8 years, this says, I thought it was 7, never mind, he lived in this new form until fate led him back to the serpents. Striking them once more, he reclaimed his male identity, forever carrying the wisdom of both experiences. Les Larmes de Tiresias captures this journey using scent to symbolize the dissolution of gender boundaries and the beauty of embracing both masculine and feminine energies. Crafted with an exquisite blend of notes that shift and evolve upon the skin, the perfume unfolds like a prophecy. That's it. The notes are juniper berries, and I guess that's that sharpness that I was talking about at the beginning. Incense and pine, also quite sharp, camphoraceous. Then moving on to neroli and iris, and then a base apparently of vanilla blossom, a leather accord, and labdanum. I'm guessing from the comments that nobody out there has tried it. Let's see what we get from the pre-sprayed. Here we go. Okay. Gender Goblin says, I'm going to read up on the myth classics homework from Persolaise. Yes, and somebody needs to do a kind of animated classics version of the story of Tiresias, or maybe we all need to read The Wasteland. That might not be a bad thing. More Violette says he still didn't learn that he should knit snakes. But you see, I think he was told that if he ever encountered the snakes again and if he hit them, then the spell would be broken. So I think he wanted to go back to being a man. I don't know. Somebody who knows more about this kind of stuff, maybe somebody with a degree in classics, could you please enlighten us? Anyway, pre-sprayed Tiresias. Interesting. Okay. What's fascinating is that it stayed very, very true to its nature. I mean, these blotters were sprayed 3 hours ago or so. That the white floral is still very, very present and actually quite bright and quite luminous. But I guess what we are getting coming through, I don't get a huge amount of vanilla. I don't know what vanilla blossoms smell like, but definitely a clean leather, not a sort of isobutyl, quinoline, heavy, tannery, Bondi type leather or Antaeus type leather, but something much more smoothly planed and a bit cedar-like. It's interesting. So for my money, I'm not sure that masculine, feminine, yin-yang energy, contrast, juxtaposition has been quite captured as well as it could have. But it certainly has a decent stab at it. And I'm glad that a brand has actually decided to make a go of it, because this was a story that was dying to be told in perfumery. So I think you ought to check it out. Gender Goblin says, and it slips into leather, definitely getting a sample. If you do, please do let me know what you think. Menelaus says, guys, I'm Greek and I still don't remember all these details about Tiresias. That's okay. Is anything that I've said correct? Anyway, so that's our Ross and Ross. Let's do the DS and Durga next. Not a brand that we end up talking about very much here on the channel. I think the last time I reviewed anything by them, it may have been on my Substack, but I can't remember for sure. This is a New York-based brand. The DS and Durga of the name refers to the husband and wife team that founded it, David and Kavi, if memory serves, because he's David, Seth, Maltz, and I don't know why she's called Durga or Durga in the name, but I don't know, maybe it's a nickname. I think in the past we have referred to them here on this channel as a little bit of a try-hard brand. You know, they're desperate to be seen as edgy, and I think when they're not trying to be hip and edgy, that's when they're at their edgiest and their hippest and their coolest. Because they're an intrinsically cool couple. They all they need to do is just kind of like stand in front of a camera, and there is something very, very effortlessly cool about them. But as soon as you get the feeling that they are putting some effort into the coolness, that's when the facade starts to crack a little bit. Was it a year ago or maybe a year and a half ago? They were either wholly or partially bought up by a large conglomerate. It may even have been Manzanita that owns Diptyque, but please don't hold it against me if I've got that wrong. So, you know, there's more money behind them, there's more investment. A lot of people love their work, a lot of people love Debaser and Bowmakers and scents like that. I have yet to find, if I'm being entirely honest here, which obviously I am, I've yet to find a DS and Durga that has really and truly captured my soul to the extent that I want to add it to my collection and wear it myself. But they do have an audience, and in the realm of those sort of hip brands like Byredo and Le Labo, they absolutely do hold their own. And also, what's interesting about them is that David South Maltz, the DS, is the perfumer. He's a self-taught perfumer. He's very, very open about the fact that he is learning new things about perfumery all the time. If you have a chance to talk to him and interview him, he will be very, very frank and candid about his creation process, and I think that deserves a lot of respect. Angela says, bought up by Manzanita. I thought it was. Thank you very much. Angela says, as a New Yorker, amen to that analysis. Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad you agree. More Violette says, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on Cognac Rain, as I've been considering getting a sample. Right. Well, thank you for bringing us straight back on track, because Cognac Rain it is. Nice name. I do like the name. We do like a cleverly punning name. So this lost sound there for a second. I've got a microphone that if you tap on a certain bit of it, you lose sound. So I just need to pay attention to that. Anyway, hopefully I'm back. Cognac Rain from DS and Durga, and I have a little bit of a press blurb about it as well. See, when I did the blotters a few hours ago, whenever it was, I thought to myself, what kind of version of cognac is this going to be? Cognac is almost a little bit like tea in perfumery. A few weeks ago, I seem to remember we were having this discussion where we said that tea in a perfume hardly ever smells of tea. It's almost like we've just come to accept that tea, when it's in a perfume, has quite a different olfactory profile from tea as in the drink. Almost a little bit like the difference between instant coffee and, you know, actual coffee, like filtered coffee. They may as well be two completely different drinks. There are some tea perfumes out there that do the tea thing in a convincing way, but most of them go for the perfumery version of tea, which is a kind of bergamotty, quite musky, almost kind of, I don't want to say soapy, but there is something soapy about it. You know, like for example, Bulgari's green tea scent doesn't particularly smell of matcha or green tea to me, and it doesn't smell of tea especially either, but it set the trend for what we expect tea perfumes to smell like. So, Cognac, I think, is probably not quite as misrepresented in perfumery, but quite often if you see a Cognac note, you think to yourself, okay, that's basically going to be a sort of acerbic, polished wood, waxed wood floor type smell. I say this as somebody who really doesn't drink very much at all and drinks very, very rarely, and I couldn't even tell you the last time I drank any cognac. I genuinely can't remember because it was that good a night. No. And if I did have any, it was probably just a sip because, I'm not, I just don't drink very much, but cognac does have a very distinctive smell, obviously, and I'm sure that there are cognacs and there are cognacs, right? And they will vary in the same way that you have different sorts of wines. But for me, I think the thing with the smell of cognac, same as the smell of wine, is that it's very, very complex. It's very, very rich. And yes, it does have that polished wood floor, that almost screechy wood aspect to it, but there is so much more to cognac than that. I don't think that the opening of the DS and Durga really gives us a huge amount of that sort of complexity. Maybe it's because they decided to go just for the woodier aspect. I mean, I'm trying to think of a kind of brandy cognac scent that is convincing, and the one that comes to mind now is the one that Mathilde Laurent did for Cartier many, many years ago for the Les Heures range, the Forbidden Hour, the Heure Défendue. But that's a bit of an unfair one to bring into this conversation here today, because that one isn't trying to just be brandy or cognac. That one is trying to be a kind of chocolate-filled liqueur. And so then when you bring that facet into it, you're dealing with all sorts of different things, because you're dealing with chocolate and cocoa and sweets and sugary notes. This isn't trying to do that. But it does feel quite monodimensional to start with, unfortunately. And maybe, I hadn't thought about this before, but maybe that kind of, that monodimensional, somewhat simpler, more streamlined personality is the kind of thing that more hip, supposedly edgy brands go for. They don't want to come across as overly complex. They actually want to present a singular profile, a singular identity in a very, very legible way. And this does do that, but it also means that you feel like you've figured it out within about 45 seconds of smelling it, and it doesn't yield very many more rewards, which is a bit of a shame. More Violette says, I don't think you've tried fragrances from chasing scents. No, I think you're right. They do true tea fragrances. Oh, okay, interesting. I don't necessarily want to wear all of their fragrances, but I appreciate them. Eric says, plum in cognac from Scent of Woods is a good one. Ah, okay. That's. Does it smell like Angel's Share? Says Maria. Oh gosh, the Killian. I can't remember. I would have to re-smell that one. But if memory serves, I think that was actually a fairly accurate cognac-y sort of brandy, Hennessy type scent. Let's do the blurb, and then we will, or the press material, and then we'll talk about, we'll smell the pre-spray blotter. So, what have we got? It's not very long. It says, I haven't read this before, and I'm just reading the first few words and thinking, really? It says, get out on the dance parquet and let your powdered wig down to vivacious viola da gamba grooves. It's Baroque, baby. If you say so. Right. Baroque music has been a fixture in my life since I was very young. I'm guessing this is This is David writing. My father, who was deaf in one ear, listened to loud music in the central artery of the house with an absolute disregard for the rest of his family's ears. Many a morning did I jolt awake to royal fireworks or Lully's Te Deum. When we were kids, my sister and I hated it, but in college I fell hard for classical music. It has been a constant in the background of my entire adult life. I listen to Baroque music almost every day, specifically in the morning for maximum pomp, and in the evening for courtly soiree vibrations. Come over any evening, and you'll certainly hear Carpenter, Lully and others who frequented Louis the Sun King's court on my record player. In this music, one hears Versailles billowing out with visions of dances, intrigues, powder wigs, sumptuous gardens, and of course rivers of cognac flowing. Cognac is the spirit that reigns supreme over all of France since its inception in the 1600s, except they haven't written hundreds, never mind. The hip language is trying hard as well. Cognac rain captures an evening of Lully sipping the fine French spirit with notes of caramelized bergamot, violety orris, and tonka beans. C'est très français. Oh, okay, I get it now. C'est très française. Very good. So the notes are, supposedly, caramelized bergamot, antique wood, cognac essence, concrete of orris, tonka, and limousine oak. Okay, well, so they're going for the polished wood floor. I wasn't thinking Baroque and Versailles and, the whole world of dangerous liaisons, anything like that at all. EcoJock says, this description reminds me of the TV series Versailles, which I haven't seen, but I think that was meant to be a kind of postmodern take on things, I suppose. Rivers of Cognac, says Yvette. I know. I mean, it's nowhere near as energetic as this description makes it sound, and it's certainly not as as Baroque as it makes it sound. So I'm surprised. We're obviously just coming at reading it from completely different directions, and I personally would never have described it in these terms, but there we go. Pre-sprayed cognac rain. I wondered if there might be a play on rain, like maybe there was going to be something a bit petrichor-y about it. Anyway. Okay, I guess the sort of sweetness of the tonka bean is coming through, but it is mostly gleaming, quite bitter wood. I suppose what we could say, and I mean this as a compliment, is that it hasn't played the sweetness card. It hasn't gone for that cliche at all. And many, many modern scents do. The tonka has got a kind of powdery sweet facet, but tonka also smells quite almondy, quite hay-like, a little bit acerbic, and you definitely get a sense of that as well. But I think I would have just appreciated one more facet, something to bring this world to life a bit more convincingly. As it is, it's just a bit too mono for me, especially now having read that it's meant to make us think of an opulent, mirrored, chandelier-heavy, debauched court, royal court. Okay, that's all right. Let's keep going. Let's do the BDK. BDK, another brand that I know a lot of you will say tries very, very hard. I had a lot of time for BDK when they launched. I think I've had a bit less time for them in recent years because it feels like they're doing more and more of a kind of blatant cash-in. They're doing more and more of just sort of trying to keep tabs on what's doing well in the market and releasing things that are derivative. My favourite BDKs, I think, are the ones that we originally got. I had a lot of time for French Bouquet, which was like a really, really glorious old school aldehydic floral, but maybe it didn't do very well. And I know that they push their wares really quite hard on social media. I think they've got a little bit of a TikTok thing happening. So I don't know. I think BDK and I have parted company, but do let me know what you think of them, whether you appreciate their work. This is a new extrait, and it's called Nectar Oud. There you go. Now, all of their perfumes have been made by world-class, renowned, extremely talented, respected perfumers. This one's no exception. It's made by Anne Filippo, whose work I think is always interesting. This is a bit of a room filler. Well, not a bit of a room filler, it's a massive room filler. So I kind of got a sense of how it works and how it operates as soon as I did the pre-spray blotter. And my initial thought, and it's the same thought that I'm getting now as I'm smelling it, is we have smelt this type of oud, I'll say what type of oud I mean, many times before, but at least in the opening, I don't know what the pre-spray blotter is going to be like, but it is done well, at least to start with. So what type of oud is it? This is the kind of tart fruit at the top, going into a kind of Tuscan leather type leather heart with the kind of darkness, nocturnal, unashamedly carnal feel of some sort of an oud note coming through. It's not an especially camphoraceous oud, it's not an especially medicinal oud, and it's not even an especially oudy oud. You know, this isn't like Frederick Mal's The Night, this isn't like an oud from Ajmal. It's definitely leather with oud in brackets. The fruit note at the top has got that kind of strawberry, raspberry thing to it, so it's tart, it's acidic, but it's also crimson. It's attractive, and I mean, I do like these sorts of perfumes, as I say, even though we've had lots and lots of them before, and Madame Persolaise is a big fan of these sorts of things. I know that if I let her smell it, she will just immediately say, can I have it? And it's interesting because I guess she's much more of a normal perfume user than I am. She's not particularly bothered about whether she smelt it before or which brand she's had it from before. If she likes the way it smells, then she'll just wear it, you know, regardless of which brand it's come from. But we've had this sort of thing from Montal. We've had the who else has done a kind of oudy, Tuscan, leathery sort of thing? We've probably had one from Crivelli. We've probably had something like it from Parfum de Marly. I'm sure we've had something like it from L'Artisan Parfumeur. It's a profile that's been big in the Middle East for a long time and has been, you know, hugely appropriated by Western perfumery in recent years. Maria says, I wore BDK's Pas ce soir on a date and it was a flop. Haven't smelt it ever since. Oh dear, sorry to read that. Spaced Out says, is it like Louis Vuitton Ombre Nomade style? I don't remember that one very well, but I would imagine Louis Vuitton has one like it too. What can I tell you about it? The press material is fairly brief. Oh, and apparently it's a Harrods exclusive. I don't know whether that's in the UK or worldwide. Nectar Oud Extrait magnifies the unexpected union of 3 rare raw materials: raspberry, oud wood, and saffron. I suppose we can sort of add saffron into the mix as well. But yeah, except that's not really an unexpected union, is it? Through a play of contrasts and colours. At the heart of this creation, raspberry takes on a bold and unexpected dimension, far from its usual light and tangy character. Juicy, dense, and strikingly natural, it evokes a golden nectar into which the fruit seems to melt, revealing a radiant and sensual brightness. Oud wood, as precious as gold, brings incomparable depth. Majestic and smoky, it blends seamlessly with the enveloping softness of raspberry. From this fusion emerges a new kind of sensuality, nothing new about it at all, a vibrant richness where each drop seems suspended between gold and nectar. Saffron, supported by the woody and leathery nuances of amyris and worked like powdered gold, completes the composition, enhancing the union of fruit and wood with a golden warmth. Like Klimt's gilded canvases where gold becomes matter, light and movement, Nectar Oud plays with texture, depth and olfactory richness. Each drop evokes a precious glow, each trail a golden adornment on the skin. Composed by Anne Filippo exclusively for Harrods, this fragrance marks her first collaboration with BDK Parfum, offering a contemporary and truly exclusive signature. And the notes, according to the list, are a saffron accord, a raspberry accord, cypriol, a liburnum, oud wood, Amber Extreme. So I wonder if we're going to get a nice dose of woody ambers when I do the pre-spray blotter. Cedar, it says Cedar Oud. I wonder if they meant cedar wood, because I haven't come across Cedar Oud yet. And benzoin. Then a quote from the founder of the brand, David Benedek. He says, with Nectar Oud, I wanted to revisit oud in its most luxurious and sensual form to make it the true protagonist of a bold yet refined extrait. I imagined a liquid oud, dense like golden nectar, evoking the idea of warm light on the skin. To me, oud is royal, mysterious, and deeply animalic, so I needed a contrast. That's where Anne Filippo came in. Well, because she's royal, mysterious, and deeply animalic. I've long admired her elegance and precision, and I knew she had this incredible raspberry accord she'd refined over the years. When she paired it with oud and saffron, something magnetic happened. The result is textured, vibrant, and luminous, like wearing golden leaves on skin. And so it carries on, but I don't think we need to read any more, except that he tells us that it's an extrait concentrated at 40%, which is pretty high, pretty heavy. Crafted as a true olfactory jewel. Is that it? Then there's a bit of an interview with Anne Filippo, which I don't think we need to read now. Interesting that they tell us that the saffron and the raspberry are accords. I mean, I guess, we knew that the raspberry was going to be an accord. What do they call? What's Amber Extreme? Amber Extreme is a synthetic molecule developed by IFF, used to enhance top notes in perfumes. It delivers a rich, intense, woody, amber, and slightly animalic signature. And I think that's it. And apparently it says here that it is available exclusively from July at Harrods and on the Harrods website when it's not being hacked. Okay. Omar says, can't wait for Akigala Oud. Yeah, I'm amazed nobody's taken that name yet, or maybe they have. Woozy says, I guess you won't be interviewing the brand owner again anytime soon. I don't know. If you'd like to be interviewed, I'm absolutely open to that. Momo says, BDK, another one of those niche brands that are desperate to be bought. Interesting. Yvette says, too bad. Tabac Rose and French Bouquet are lovely. And yes, I have Gris Charnel. So there. Now, that was another one that I think has won a lot of fans. Pre-sprayed. Let me get rid of that one so we don't get mixed up. Pre-sprayed Nectar Oud. I've just read Rita's comment. Okay. Definitely heading into Ambery Woods territory, but it's fine. Trust me, it's fine. You can see it hasn't affected the forehead. It hasn't made me weep. And I guess it's become more oud-like. The leather has become angrier and darker. So I suppose that's a good thing if you want an oud scent. But I just think we've had these things before, and it's difficult for them to stand out. It's difficult for them to be truly distinctive. We have got 2 to go. Let's do this from a brand new brand. I think it's a British brand. I hope I'm not mistaken in saying that. I know that they've got a discovery set, and on the strength of this perfume, I would be very interested to try their discovery set. The brand is called Homework, and the scent of theirs that I have to share with you today is called Fire, as you can see. Each one is named after one of the elements. So there's a water, there's an air, I think there's a metal. Where does that leave us for the last one? And this is interesting, because as soon as I received the sample, I thought, oh, let's have a spray and see how this is operating. It's absolutely, certainly interesting enough for me to want to try and get hold of the discovery set so I can try all of them. So here we go with Fire from Homework. I don't know who the perfumer is, and that's always a bit disappointing in today's creation climate, where I think brands really should reveal who their perfumers are. But I do know that sometimes there are very, very good and unavoidable reasons. Anyway, maybe if we find out more about the brand, I'll be able to tell you why we don't know who the perfumer is. So, Fire. Fire, when I first smelt it, now a lot of you may be aware that I'm a huge fan and admirer of Andy Towers' Lone Star Memories for his own brand. I know that his most popular perfume, his most beloved perfume, is L'air du désert marocain, and it's a beautiful piece of work, beautiful modern amber, but for me, the best one has always been Lone Star Memories, and it is one of these scents that I must never, ever, ever be without a bottle of, and probably 2 backup bottles. Lone Star Memories is a really gorgeous take on leather and fire and flames and a kind of roasted coffee note, and it tells a beautiful story of a cowboy, I guess, working hard on the ranch and then settling down in the evening by the fire and washing off the day's grime with geranium-scented soap. It's just perfect. There is nothing about it that I don't like. Fire from Homework is the closest that I've ever come to smelling something that is quite a bit like Lone Star Memories. It has several points of difference as well, but when I first sprayed it, I thought, oh gosh, this is like, Lone Star Memories version 1.6 or something like that. And Lone Star Memories is also a very cool name, says Omar. Yeah, I completely agree. So you get flames, you get embers, you get burning wood, you get smoke. But I guess the difference here is that you get sparks, which you don't, interestingly, get in Lone Star Memories. And the sparks come in the form of spices. You've got cloves and nutmeg and cardamom, all very, very naturalistic smelling, very, very convincingly done. And if you can imagine, if you know the 2 perfumes, so if you know Lone Star Memories and you also know Marrakesh Intense from Aesop, if you could imagine somehow the bright, eye-popping, eye-catching luminosity and the very, very convincing photoreal spiciness of Marrakesh Intense coming together with the smoke and the embers and the night sky and the soot and the ash of Lone Star Memories, you will get an idea of how fire works. I'm very impressed. The other interesting thing about it is that it seems to be quite different on paper compared to on skin. All perfumes smell a little bit different on skin, on fabric, but most of them don't smell markedly different. I think the sweetness comes out a lot more on skin, or at least it does on my skin, which I personally found just a touch disappointing. And I thought, okay, note to self, spray this more on the clothes you're wearing rather than on skin, because the sweetness kind of overpowered the fiery notes to some extent. But it's really, really interestingly done, because it somehow manages to be very, very, very bright, almost like the sparks are turning into fireworks, and yet it's got a thoroughly convincing, believable bonfire type note. I don't have a huge amount about it that I can say to you, because I haven't got a press blurb particularly, but if I were to just I thought I had the website up, but it seems to have vanished, and now I can't find it, so that's not very, very good. Oh, here we go. I thought I had it up. I think they've got other products. I think they do candles. So yes, there's an earth, fire, metal, water and wood. Fire, they say that they've got 3 buzzwords for it: energy, passion and creativity, a scent to restore inner drive. Rooted in traditional Chinese medicine, and there is a field of tiger balm about it, those sorts of very camphoraceous spices. Fire merges smoky woods and nuanced spices to support moments of vitality, warmth and creative intention. A blaze of clove and sandalwood ignites the senses, softened by earthy patchouli and coriander. Blood orange and ylang ylang offer sparks of brightness, its heat, drive and glowing energy. And it works really well. It's like how you would want an Aesop perfume to be. Now, pre-sprayed fire, as it were. It's nicely done. Muskier than I thought it would be, and very, very definitely kind of veered away from Lone Star Memories, because Lone Star Memories becomes this kind of geranium, birch tarry leather type thing. I wonder if it's got something like cashmeran in it, because it's now reminding me of Frédéric Malle's Dans tes bras, which was done by Maurice Roussel, wasn't it? Cashmeran is a kind of it's used as a musk. It's a kind of musk-like material that has got a very, very snuggly, nuzzly, slightly velvety, nutty, but very bodily feel to it. This is attractive. This is attractive. So much so that I really, really do want to try and get hold of the Discovery set. I'm hoping that the other 4 aren't massive duds. But this is well worth checking out, I would say. And it's not cheap, but it's also not horrifically expensive, because at least on their site, on their UK site, it's £85 for 50 mils. So, you know, that's... to get 50 mils of something as enjoyable as this for less than £100 is probably quite good going nowadays. Tom says, the homework fragrances look really interesting, so I'm going to buy the Discovery set right now. If you do, come back and let me know which ones I should try. I'm going to try and get it as well. CJ says, I'd love to see your review of the full Discovery set. I think we might have to do it. EB says, joining after an early lab session, what are we sniffing? Well, we're down to our last one. Now, this is one that I've mentioned before, but in passing, because I put this on my list of the top 10 perfumes for this autumn, but I thought it needs a review of its own, because I'm really impressed with it. It's brand new from Nissaba. This is the travel size, and it's called Les Alpes, and it's composed by Fabrice Pellegrin, whose work I really admire, as you know. This, I think, is lovely, and it has an especially lovely opening. I first smelt it, I was fortunate enough to smell it at Aix-en-Provence in Milan earlier this year, before it had been launched. The founder, Sébastien Tissot, had a stand at Aix-en-Provence, and he gave me a sneak preview, and I thought, ooh, this is one to remember. We need to come back to this. Spaced Out says, Nissaba continues to surprise me in a very good way. Great new brand. No, their stuff is really, really interesting, isn't it? I mean, I care for some more than others, but I think this is my favourite of theirs so far. And I do really like Provence. Provence is just such a note-perfect evocation of that part of the world, with really beautiful herbal notes. Anyway, Les Alpes. It's just such an instant head clearer. I mean, I don't really know the Alps very well, and I mean, I've driven through them, through some of those tunnels that literally go on for miles and miles and miles. I'm you know, I was saying earlier that I'm not much of a drinker. I'm even less of a skier. In fact, I don't know how to ski. I've never skied in my life. But I would imagine that one of the attractions of going to a cold mountain, one of the attractions of skiing, must be to stand somewhere on a quiet, cold, snow-covered mountainside and just let your soul and your lungs and your mind be filled with utter clarity and just beautiful crispness and just perfect, entirely unpolluted air entering your system, entering your bloodstream with the most pristine, flawless blue sky above you. That's exactly the kind of imagery that this scent recreates. It's really, really nicely done. But it also has a surprise up its sleeve, because after you've got the kind of cool aldehydic feel, you start going into lavender territory, and you realise that it's almost like playing a fougere card, and starts being more about the herbs and the foliage and the vegetation that might be growing on some of the Alps. It's really, really clever and so nuanced and rich, without being heavy or you know, trying to be rich and nuanced in the way that most perfumes are, which is by, you know, hitting you hard with the balsams and the resins and all of those sorts of grand notes. It manages to be clean and pure and unadulterated, and yet very, very, very compelling, very, very interesting. I have got a bit of a blurb about this one as well, so let me share it with you before we do the pre-sprayed blotter. It says, this is an extrait as well, apparently, and it's the first extrait that the brand have done. In the silence of the alpine peaks, the scent of juniper berries rises sharp and fresh, like the crisp bite of winter air. Pine trees stand tall, their resinous warmth mingling with the cold, while the soft whisper of sun-dried hay carries a hint of summer pastures. And this is all in here. This fragrance echoes the wild contrast of the mountains, where the chill of snow meets the quiet warmth of the earth. And it says that we have a top note, fresh aromatic scent of pine needles, absolutely agree, and crisp fennel. Yeah, there is definitely something herbally anisic about it. Captures, it's making me think of the, did I say this last time, that it's making me think of the Lolita Lempicka for men? Do you remember that one? Captures the essence of a brisk alpine breeze. In the middle, a vibrant alpine juniper essence entwines with geranium, cardamom, and a resinous cistus. Resinous cistus, say that a few times after you've had a bit of cognac rain. And in the base, Hay Absolute's warmth is contrasted by aromatic facets of fir balsam, while a bouquet of woods adds intensity. And then it tells us about the ingredients that have been taken from the Alps, because if you remember, part of the thing about this brand is that they always try to showcase ingredients that are central to the particular concept for that perfume. The needles of Pinus sylvestris, for the Pine Needle Absolute, are extracted using solvents and purification processes. This pine species is widespread throughout the Alps at subalpine elevations. For the Hay Absolute, they say collected in the Southern Alps in France and extracted in Grasse through solvent extraction and purification. And the Juniper Berries. Juniper, they say, is a native and widespread species in the Alps, where it grows at altitudes of up to 2,500 meters. Our essence is sourced from the Argentera Mountains in the Italian Alps. And a little bit of a quote from Monsieur Pellegrin himself. He says, "If I could bottle this experience, it would be with hay, a nod to the Alps. Hay from the Alps, earthy and rich, lends depth to a fragrance, infusing both masculine and feminine notes with warmth and longevity." And if there's a bit of coumarin in there to support the hay, that's probably what's making me think of a fougere type construction, right? There's a sweetness to it brought by its balsamic facet, honeyed with a hint of the Orient, a warmth that cuts through the chill of high altitudes. Though humble, hay is a rare treasure, its yield small, but its impact profound. And it says here that Fabrice Pellegrin is an avid skier, rather him than me, and he was inspired by the beauty of the Alps to create this unique extrait using rare natural extracts originating from these mountains. There we are. I am impressed. I'm impressed with this one. Dushan says, dinner time and then coffee and some new perfumes at the bar. Enjoy. Bon appetit. And pre-sprayed Les Alpes. Dahlia says, fresh air scents usually give me a headache. Try this one. Let me know what you think of it. Right, pre-sprayed Les Alpes. Yeah, it's definitely playing that Hay Fougere card. Nicely musky, but not overdone. And it's not as sharp, it's not as piercing as it was at the beginning, but I guess you almost get the sense of now the sun setting. You've enjoyed that the heavenly clarity of the skies, and now the sun has gone down, and it's, I don't know, it's time for the après-ski. Maybe that's where you enjoy a bit of cognac or brandy or something. Nice work, really, really nice work. Okay, I think we are done. As I say, please try to tune in tomorrow at 6 p.m. UK time for an interview with Hiram Green. I've been trying to get him on the channel for a long time. I'm glad we're going to be able to do it finally. Start thinking of some questions. Thank you very much for all the comments and the chat. Please give the video a thumbs up if you have enjoyed it, and stay tuned to social media for details of other videos coming your way. But until next time, be good, and I will see you soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.